everyone. I'm going to go ahead and go over the major quiz review. Feel free to fast forward if you only need help on certain problems, or you can pause it. If you have any other questions after watching this video, email me, because we're only going to get about 10 minutes before we take the test on Wednesday, okay? So the first one, a public library has an aquarium in the shape of a rectangular prism. The base is 6 feet by 2.5 feet. The height is 4 feet. How many square feet of glass were used to build the aquarium? The top of the aquarium is open. So it tells me in my problem that it is a rectangular prism. All right, that's important. I need to know that because that tells me what formula I'm going to be using. It also tells me that the base is 6 feet by 2.5 feet and the height is 4. Now it says that I'm not going to use the top of the aquarium. So that means I want my lateral and only one base. Now, if we think about our formula, S equals PH plus 2B, that's our lateral plus 2 bases. But like I said, if there's no top, then we don't want 2 bases. We only want 1 base. Okay? So I'm going to pull out my base, and that was 6 by 2.5. That'll let me find my P and my B, or my perimeter of the base and my area of the base. So for perimeter, remember that it's 2 times 6 plus 2.5. And when I go ahead and type that in, 2 times 6 plus 2.5, my perimeter is 17. And capital B, that's area of the base. And my base shape is this rectangle, so I'm going to do base times height, which would be 6 times 2.5. So my area of my base is going to be 6 times 2.5, or 15. So now that I have these numbers, I'm going to plug in what I have into my formula. So right now I have perimeter, which is 17. And again, I only need one base, so it's going to be 15. Now, reminder that your h is lowercase. That's because it's talking about your distance between the bases, or your height of the figure. So if this is one base, here is my other base, so my height of my figure is 4. Okay, so I'm going to plug in a 4 here for my height. Now I can go ahead and type this in, 17 times 4 plus 15. So my surface area is going to be 83, and these are feet squared. Okay. So now to work number 2. How much cardboard is used to make a toilet paper roll with a radius of 1.25 inches and a height of 5 inches? Now, toilet paper roll, if you think about it, it is a cylinder, and I'm using the cardboard part of the toilet paper roll. So that's only the sides or lateral. And a toilet paper roll is a cylinder. So that means I will be using S equals 2 pi RH. So 2 times pi. My problem tells me that my radius is 1.25 and my height is 5. All right, so I just need to go ahead and type that in. 2 pi times 1.25, that says subtract, times 1.25 times 5. And remember, we round to the hundredths place. So 39.27, and these are inches, and area is squared. Okay. So for number 3, Tara bought Trey an Avengers poster for his birthday. She is wrapping the cylindrical cardboard case she bought for it. How much wrapping paper does Tara need? Now, nowhere in here does it say lateral or total, but when you think about wrapping a present, you want the entire present covered in wrapping paper. Okay? So, I have a cylinder and I want total. My formula chart tells me that's S equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi R squared. So if I'm looking at my picture, my radius is 25 hundredths and my height is 3.4. Okay. So I have 2 times pi times radius, we just said was 0.25, height 3.4, okay, plus 2 pi, and again, radius is 0.25 squared. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to type this all in at once. No need to do it in 2 parts. 2 pi times 0.25 times 3.4 plus 2 pi times 0.25 squared. And again, we round to the hundredths place in 8th grade. So 5.73, and these are feet, and surface area is always squared. Okay, next, number 4. Kevin is painting a block in the shape of a triangular prism. What is the surface area of the block? Now, it doesn't say total or lateral, but I am going to paint the entire block. It does tell me prism, which tells me I'm going to use a formula S equals PH plus 2B. And whenever I have a triangular prism, my base is the triangle. Okay. So I'm going to pull my triangle out, and it tells me 4.5. Okay. So I need my P for perimeter of that triangle and my capital B for my area of that triangle. So perimeter is when we add up all the sides. Well, I only see 2 sides here. A triangle has 3. That means I'm going to need to do Pythagorean theorem because I do have a right angle here. Okay, so when I do Pythagorean theorem, I do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember that your right angle points to the c, or the hypotenuse. So I'm going to plug in 5 squared plus 4.5 squared equals c squared. Now, our last step in Pythagorean theorem is to take the square root. We can turn all of this into one step if we just put it all under the square root symbol in the calculator at once. So square root of 5 squared plus 4.5 squared. There, we just found the side length, and the side length is 6.73, okay? So now I'm going to find my perimeter. I'm going to add up my 3 sides. So perimeter is going to be 5 plus 4.5 plus 6.73. So 5 plus 4.5 plus 6.73. The perimeter of this triangle is 16.23. And then I still need to find this capital B, which stands for my area of the base. My formula chart tells me the area of the triangle is 1/2 BH. So 1/2, and remember that your base and your height make the right angle. So right here's my right angle. So I'm going to use 4.5 and 5. So 1/2 times 4.5 times 5. So my area of this triangle is 11 25/100. So I'm going to plug in what I have calculated so far. Perimeter, 16.23. Moving on, plus 2. I've calculated my area of the base as 11.25. Okay. Now that h is lowercase. So again, that's my height of my figure, or my distance between my two bases. Here's the first base, here's the second base. And in between is 8 centimeters long. So 8 is going to be my h that I plug in. So when I type this into the calculator, 16.23 times 8 plus 2 times 11 25/100, I get 152 34/100 centimeters squared as my answer to number 4. Okay. Moving to number 5, we're going to go back and review linear or nonlinear. Remember that linear has that keyword line in it. So if they make a straight line, it can be diagonal, it can be vertical, it can be horizontal, but I just want to see if it makes a straight line. Okay. So if I drew a line, does it go through those points? Yes. Now, is it going to touch every single one of them? Probably not. But for the most part, I want you to be able to tell me that if I drew a line here, it is going to go through those points. Okay? Do they look like a line? That's what I want. So on these first two, this one, my line can go through those dots. So this first one is linear. On my second one, again, it doesn't touch every one of them, but they do look like a line. So the second one is linear as well. On this third one, I cannot make a line there. Okay, so the last one will be nonlinear. Number 6, I'm looking for the lateral surface area, and it says of the prism below, this is a cylinder. We know that. I don't pay attention when I make reviews clearly. So lateral, my shape is a cylinder. That tells me S equals 2 pi RH. So I know I'm going to use 2 and pi. Now from my picture, I need my radius and my height. Remember that your radius is halfway across the circle. That 11.4 goes all the way across the circle. So to get my radius, I need to divide 11.4 by 2. So my radius is 5.7. This 10.7 is going to be my height. So radius 5.7 times 10.7. So when I type this in, I type in 2 pi times 5.7 times 10.7. And I get 383.21, and these are yards and they are squared. Okay. Moving to number 6. Mrs. Tubbs bought her mom a gift from Dillard's and got it wrapped in wrapping paper. There we go, wrapping things again. What is the total surface area of the package? From my picture, I can tell that it's a rectangular prism. That tells me I'm going to use S equals PH plus 2B. Now, on your rectangular prism, as long as you pick two opposite rectangles, so that means either top and bottom, side left and right, or front and back, it doesn't matter which ones are my bases. I am going to go ahead and pick this side here with 4.2 and 10. Okay, So since I'm picking that, that's what I'm going to use for my P and my B. So I'm going to draw out that side, and it was 10, 4.2. So P again is perimeter. That's when I add up all the sides. I know I have 2 10s and 2 4s, so I'm going to do 2 times 10 plus 4.2. And for my perimeter, I get 28 and 4/10. Then I need my capital B. Remember, that's area of my base. We drew the base out to not get confused. It is a rectangle, so area of a rectangle is base times height. That gives me 10 times 4.2. Okay, 10 times 4.2, 42. So using my formula, I'm going to plug in what I have. P, perimeter, we said 28.4. I have 2, and my base was 42. That my area of the base was 42. For my height, again, it's lowercase, so it's the whole figure or the distance between the bases. If I have one base over here, that means the opposite one would be over here. And the distance between those two bases would make my height 14.5. Okay, so when I type that into my calculator, I'm doing 28 and 4/10 times 14.5 plus 2 times 42. So my total surface area is going to be 495 and 8/10 millimeters squared. That is how much wrapping paper will be needed. Number 8, determine the lateral surface area. Right? Lateral, and I can tell this is a triangular prism, so I will be using S equals PH. Now, because it's a triangular prism, that means the triangles are my bases. Okay. So I'm going to draw my triangle out so that I know what my focus is. And that said 15, 8, and 17. So to get my P, or my perimeter, that's when I add up my sides. So 15 plus 17 plus 8. My perimeter is going to be 40 inches. And I can go ahead and plug that in. Perimeter is 40. And then again, my height is lowercase, so it's my distance between my two triangles. So 13 will be my height. And when I plug in 40 times 13, I get 520 inches. And these are squared because it is surface area. Moving on to number 9. Which of the following shows a non-linear? Non means not, linear means line. So I want the one that does not look like a line. Now, if I could draw a line, it would go through these dots. So A is linear. B, again, I could draw a line. My dots pretty much look like that. C, I can draw a line. D, I cannot draw a line there. Okay, because I cannot put a line going through my dots that follow the dots, that makes D non-linear. Okay, moving on to number 10. Solve the equation for X. So I am going to put a line down the middle. That reminds me that whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. It also tells me to go over the line, I need to do the inverse operation. So when we're solving for equations, the first thing we need to do is eliminate fractions. I don't have any fractions in this one, so I'm moving on. The next step is to eliminate parentheses. I do have parentheses. I need to get rid of them by distributing. And remember, that's when we take this outside number and we multiply it to each number inside the parentheses. So I have -6 times 1x. -6 times 1 gives me -6, and these are x's. Then I have -6 times -7. A negative times a negative gives me a positive, and 6 times 4 is 42. Same thing on the right side. 2 times 4, that gives me 8. And then I have 2 times +3. That would give me +6, and these are x's. Now, personally, I like to move the smallest x over. You don't have to move the smallest one. I just think it's easier because it leaves us with positive numbers. So my smaller x, I have a -6 and a +6, would be this -6. And then to move it over, I need to do the opposite or the inverse. The opposite of a negative is a positive. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides. That gives me my 0 pair. That's gone. The only thing I have left here on the left side is 42. I have 8, and I have 6 plus 6. That's going to give me 12, and these are x's, so I can't forget that x. Now, my variables came over here to the left. So that means my constants, or those numbers, are going to come over here to the, variables went to the right. Constants are going to the left. So I need to move this +8. That means we're going to do the inverse again to make a 0 pair. So positive minus is going to leave me with 0. That's my 0 pair. Move 8 over here. So I have 42 minus 8. That gives me 34 equals 12x. And then our last step is to solve it by dividing. We divide by that coefficient or that number touching the x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 12. Now, when you get to high school or in algebra next year, you are going to leave your answers in simplest form of a fraction. Okay, so this simplified, okay, if I did 34 divided by 12 and I kept it as a fraction, yes, it's going to be an improper fraction, but that's okay. It's going to leave me with 8/3. So once you get into algebra or high school, you're going to leave answers as a fraction. For now, if you've turned it into a decimal, that's okay. 2.83. All right. Number 11. The cylinder below has a diameter of 8 feet. Determine the total surface area. Telling me cylinder, telling me total. S equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. Now it does tell me diameter of 8. And remember, we need the radius, which is only half of it. So my radius will be 4. So I have 2 times pi times my radius, which is 4. And my height, I can see that distance between the two circles is 2. Okay, plus 2 pi, and we just said radius was 4 squared. So when we type this in, 2 pi times 4 times 2 plus 2 pi times 4 squared. We get 150.796, but remember we rounded up, so our answer should be 150 and 8/10 feet squared. And then our last problem, the lateral surface area of a cylinder is 169.56 square inches. The cylinder has a height of 6 inches. What is the radius of the cylinder? So I have important information. I have my lateral and shape. That tells me I'm going to use S equals 2 pi RH. Now I'm going to fill in with what I have. It says the surface area is 169.56. So I'm plugging that in for S. Okay, equals 2 is a number, pi is a number. I am looking for my radius, so I'm going to leave the R there. And it tells me my height. It says I have a height of 6 inches. Now, I just said 2 is a number, pi is a number, and 6 is a number. So I am going to actually multiply those things together. 2 times pi times 6. Okay, the reason I did that is because I'm trying to make an equation. So I have 169.56. When I multiply those together, that is like making my coefficient. So 37.7 R. Still have that R there. Now I'm at a 1 step. And these are multiplying, so I'm going to divide. So my radius is 4.497. That 7 tells me to round up. So my radius is 4.5, and these are all in inches. So 4.5 inches. All right. Fast forward, rewind. Again, if you still have questions, go ahead and email me with them, or I can answer them in about the first 10 minutes of class before we take our quiz.